What did the government inspectors find when they did an audit of the Theranos lab? I call it the pages and pages of deficiencies, which led the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to conclude that the Theranos lab posed an immediate jeopardy to patients' health and safety. So we're going to look at the actual evidence, because you know me, I like to look at the evidence, and that way you can draw your own conclusions. What's your analysis? So please do leave a comment, and please do subscribe to this channel. Please support my work, and thank you to all of those of you who have subscribed to my channel and for supporting my work. And if you want to contribute to help me produce these videos, because it's a lot of work, I left a link to PayPal. If you go to the video, to the description box below the video, there will be a link to PayPal if you want to contribute. So thank you very much for supporting my work and for subscribing. Please do hit the like button and the bell notification. So I'm Michele Hagan. I'm a legal analyst and a former prosecutor. You may recognize me because I provided a lot of legal analysis on Elizabeth Holmes, the co-defendant of Sunny Balwani. He's facing the same 12 counts of fraud relating to defrauding investors, defrauding to patients, and conspiring, allegedly, with Elizabeth Holmes to defraud patients and investors. Okay, so let me give you the highlights of the testimony today. So it's a new witness. Her name is Sarah Bennett, and she is a CMS inspector from the Center, I always have to look at this, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. She went along with one of her colleagues, and they inspected the Theranos lab in Newark, California. So she did not testify in Elizabeth Holmes' case. The report, this findings that I'm going to show you, it did come into evidence in the Holmes case, but they didn't put on any witnesses, right? But in the Balwani case, the prosecution has called Sarah Bennett. So she testified today, and it's day 22 of the Sunny Balwani trial. So she said she found multiple lab violations, and I'll show you her findings. That'll be the next thing we'll take a look at. And she went with Gary Yamamoto, one of her colleagues, to inspect the Theranos lab in the fall of 2015. And why that's important is because, and I have to look at the indictment again, the patient complaints, so the 4 patient complaints relate to this around this time period of the fall, the summer of 2015. Okay, so was the lab producing results that are fast, accurate, and reliable? Well, I don't think that's what these pages and pages of deficiencies indicate to me. And again, I don't have a medical degree. I don't have a science degree. But those of you who do, please forgive me if I screw up on interpreting this. I'm doing my best, okay? I did go to a good college, and I did take some good science classes. So I think I can navigate my way through this scientific speak. Okay. So, and by the way, bottom line is even me reading these findings, I can tell there's a problem. Okay. So, let me just tell you what Sarah Bennett said. She, testified that they went in the fall of 2015. She issued all these findings. They issued that letter saying that it poses an immediate threat. The deficiencies at the lab pose immediate threat to patients' health and safety. But what happened? They still reported results. They still issued and gave patients results during this time period that they found all these pages and pages of deficiencies. Anyway, so on cross-examination, she was asked about the CMS report, the findings that I'll show you. And that she said, Theranos was notified of these deficiencies by that letter, and I'll show that to you. And the defense counsel, Balwani's counsel, tried to get Ms. Bennett to acknowledge that she never reviewed the Theranos fingerstick lab, the lab that they had separately. But she replied, I may have reviewed some of the quality control data and performance specifications. In order to be in compliance with CLIA, Again, this video is simply my opinion for education and informational purposes only, but I think they have to comply, right, with all these regulations, such as like quality control data, etc. So she explained that the Theranos lab deficiencies, if it's not documented, she said, it's not done. In other words, they assume if you don't document that you've done the quality control testing, etc., then it hasn't been done, according to Ms. Bennett. In order to be able to support what is done, they have to be able to provide this documentation. And they didn't provide the documentation to the government regulators, the government inspectors. Defense counsel also pointed out that CMS findings that the quality control tests and the evaluations weren't done in a timely manner. Balwani explained if they don't review the results of the quality control in a timely manner, the quality control is really not effective. So there's a problem there. They're not reviewing the quality control results. They're not presenting the documents to the regulator that has an obligation to review these labs. Then Balwani's counsel finished up cross by asking Ms. Bennett if she had any evidence that Balwani was aware that Theranos was not in compliance before the CMS issued their findings in their report. Was Ms. Bennett aware whether or not Balwani knew? And why is that important? Because if he didn't know there were problems with the lab, then how could he be misrepresenting things? I think that's what the defense is saying. That's what they're trying to say. Balwani didn't know. This regulator didn't go and talk to Balwani. But what did the government do on cross? The government asked on redirect, if Miss Bennett, if the inspectors regularly ask the COO, Sunny Balwani, if they regularly ask COOs if they know about the various lab conditions during their inspections, or if she asked for Balwani and Holmes text messages. Because you remember, the government is saying they kept in constant contact with each other. Balwani, and if you look at some of the videos I've done, you can see the text where Balwani is saying it's a mess. He's telling Elizabeth about all the problems they're having at the lab. Of course, in the Holmes case, they did say the problems were due to the lab techs, not due to the technology. Okay, so Ms. Bennett said that it's not something they do. They don't go and talk to the COO regarding their investigations. They don't talk to the COO while they're doing the inspection. They issue their findings. So the prosecutor also asked, do you normally interview COO during the inspections? She said, not normally. But she did say, we told Mr. Balwani every day. We told Mr. Balwani every day what deficiencies we found. Ouch. They told him every day what deficiencies. Bennett says she was surprised to learn in November of 2015 that Theranos had not notified the physicians, the doctors that they work with, of their deficiencies that were found in the CMS inspection that were identified in September of 2015. She said she thought patients should have also been notified right away of those deficiencies that were found. So the defense objected. There was a period of time where they were talking to the judge about their objections, and the judge overruled the defense's objection, and they allowed the prosecutors, because the government wanted to ask Bennett how these lab deficiencies could impact patients, the patient results. The government wanted to ask that. The defense didn't want this witness testifying to that. They didn't want this witness testifying. Is it speculative as to what she thinks, how this would impact patients? But the judge overruled the defense's objection and allowed them to ask Miss Bennett about how the deficiencies, the findings that they found in the Theranos lab, how that could impact the patients, right? If there's deficiencies, don't we all know that would potentially impact patient blood results? All right, so on so she testified it possibly have patient impacts for every test that was recorded. Then on recross, the defense, Balwani's counsel, said that they tried to get her to say that she did not determine the patient impact. She's basically giving her opinion. She didn't do a determination of whether it impacted the patient. So then they were done. They were done with Sarah Bennett with CMS. And they got these reports and that letter into evidence before the jury. So next up is Daniel Mosley, who was one of the investors. He's a lawyer and investor. He was a friend of Henry Kissinger, and he referred several of his clients, and Kissinger actually asked him, if I remember this right from the Holmes case, to check out Theranos, And so I will talk about Daniel Mosley's testimony later because I got plenty to cover here, and I want to show you, in my opinion, the pages and pages of deficiencies that Sarah Bennett and Gary Yamamoto found in the Theranos lab. And you can draw your own conclusions. So please do subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment if you'd like. I want to know what your analysis is. All right, so let's take a look at the evidence. So here is the letter that was issued. Let me scroll up here a little bit. So this was from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. It's part of the Department of Health and Human Services. They issued this letter in January of 2016 to the lab director of record of Theranos. At that time was Dr. Dewan. Adam Rosendorf had already left. And here's their finding: immediate jeopardy. And they say here, dear Dr. Dewan, in order for a lab to perform testing under CLIA, it must comply with all CLIA requirements. Federal regulators require on-site surveys to determine, I call it an audit, it's a survey, whether or not the lab is in compliance with these regulations. They conducted a recertification and complaint survey of the laboratory. The on-site survey was completed November 20th, 2015. And then they received critical information regarding the lab on December 23rd. That's probably relating to the whistleblower information that was given to CMS. And they found deficient practices of laboratory posing immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. And they define immediate jeopardy as defined by the CLIA regs as a situation in which immediate corrective action is necessary because the lab's non-compliance with one or more condition level requirements has already caused or causing or likely to cause at any time serious injury or harm or death to individuals served by the laboratory or to the health and safety of the general public. That's what they concluded. Safety concerns, possibly serious injury or harm. Because what was happening here was Theranos was still they were still testing patients' blood. They were still issuing the reports during this time. And according to Sarah Bennett, she told Balwani every day when they were doing their inspections, she told him of the deficiencies. Yet they were still releasing patient results. So you can go ahead and read this. And then they say enclosed is the CMS form, and I'll show you that. That's their findings. They gave them 10 calendar days to take corrective action and to comply. You can go ahead and read this. It's, presenting documentation to show that they have taken corrective action, blah, blah, blah. You can read through this. And it was Karen Fuller. It was issued by the Division of Survey and Certification in San Francisco and the CMS Central Office, the Survey and Certification Group, of which Sarah Bennett is one of the inspectors. So if you have any questions, contact Gary Yamamoto or my staff. He was one of the inspectors that went with Sarah Bennett. Okay, so let's get to those pages and pages of deficiencies, I call them. All right, so here we go. Here it is. Now, this is when they completed the survey, November 20th, 2015. And again, why is this important? Because several of these patient counts relating to patient BB, patient ET, and the other patient, I think it is, here we go. Let me double check here to make sure I get this right. So we have, we have patient BB, we have patient ET who got the false HIV test, HIV positive test. We have the dentist from Arizona who is patient ME who got a false prostate cancer test. And we have the other patient BB who also had issues regarding the results of his blood test. So those are 3 counts of the patient counts, which I think the government is trying to tie to Sunny Balwani. You know, he was the one that several of these witnesses said was overseeing the Newark lab, and several of the text messages between Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani relate to, he was telling her he was at the lab and the conditions he found, etc. Okay, so let's take a look at these findings, these pages and pages of deficiencies. So here we go. And again, for all of you with the medical and the healthcare, you'll understand this far better than I will. So I'm just going to scroll through it. So control procedures. They have to document all the control procedures performed. They say it wasn't met. The finding was it wasn't met. Based on the review, the quality control records failed to ensure that QC was acceptable prior to reporting patient results during the period of April 2015 and September 2015. Okay, so there's a problem there. And they talk about SOPs, standard operating procedures, should have been checked, should be documented prior to reporting. They found that that wasn't done. And then they talk about one of the general supervisors at Theranos stated that QC was acceptable if the values were plus or minus 2 SD. I think that's standard deviation, if I remember. So, they had a range that they had to have the results within 2 standard deviations of the mean. Okay, and what did they find? What did these inspectors, what did Miss Bennett, Mr. Yamamoto find? Well, they ran 7 times without obtaining acceptable QC, 12 times without obtaining acceptable QC levels. We had to rerun it 3 times. Twice they had to rerun it. It was unacceptable. They had violation messages. 81 patients were reported between April and September 16th. Their results. They failed to ensure that the quality control was acceptable according to Ms. Bennett, according to these findings. They also had daily QC procedures that they had rejected QC if either the level fell within the 2 standard deviation. They had problems there. The general supervisor stated that when the QC was unacceptable, the TPS device, the Theranos proprietary device, locked out patient testing for 24 hours or until the QC was acceptable. And why that's important is because that's not what happened according to these findings, if I understand this correctly. QC records show that the patient result was run less than the 24 hours. They had the device showing a problem on August 14th, yet they ran it again about minutes later. They did it again here. They reran it, even though they're, in other words, they're not following their own protocol regarding their QC levels, right? So again, they had a failure of a test, yet they reported patient results. I think that's what that says. Patient data showed 3 patients they reported, 2 patients, another 3 more patients. They had a 10-time warning message. They reported patient data regarding 7 patients, even though the results were outside their own 2 standard deviation of an acceptable level. Looks like to me they were reporting results during the time that the lab had a 10-time warning. They had problems and they were reporting results. I think that's what this says. Patient data showed that 5 patients they reported results on. Then the Levy-Jennings chart revealed that the device they were using had 13 consecutive days and 15 consecutive days where the results were at least 2 standard deviations. The QC was 2 standard deviations below the mean. And then we have another, under paragraph P, 19 consecutive days where it was below their own acceptable level. Then we have 15 days under Q that it was above their mean. Okay, so we're getting results that are below their acceptable range and results that are above. Yet it looks like they're reporting these results to patients. Under S here, it had 113 consecutive days where they had QC issues. There were at least 2 standard deviation, 113 days. Isn't that like 4 months? Is that no? It's just around 4 months. So you can go ahead and read this. And then they said under D 5775's comparison of test results. So they looked at comparing the results from the proprietary to the Theranos devices versus the other devices. And they said here that if a lab performs the same test using different instruments, the lab must have a system that twice a year evaluates and defines the relationships between the test results using different instruments, and they have to document that. What was their finding? That standard wasn't met. They didn't document. Then they reviewed some documentation. It shows the laboratory failed to have a system. They didn't have a system in place to evaluate using other instruments. They had undated documentation. The quality control month reports under C revealed that 7 devices were used from 2015 to June of 2015, but only 3 devices were included in the study. They were using 7, yet only reported on 3. Wow. Okay, you can read through this. Under G, quality control monthly reports revealed that 12 devices were used to test for vitamin D and 18 devices during a period of March, but they used 12 in February, they used 18 in March. But they only reported 7 devices in their comparison study. Why are they using so many devices? Why are they using 12 and then 18? Why? Under H, QC and patient results also, they said was not revealed and not included in the comparison study. You can read through this. And then this is blank. It's just as the exhibit appears. And then analytical systems quality assessments. You can go ahead. They said the standard wasn't met, and they showed here were their findings. Based on a review of the data that was presented, the laboratory failed to have a quality assessment procedure to identify and correct the QC values. They didn't even have safeguards here. And look at this, CV, correlation variance. Remember, Tyler called Elizabeth Holmes out on this. You can look at the video I did. When he showed her those scatter plots where he showed that they had a lot of variance between the results. Well, look at here. Look at the findings that Sarah Bennett and Gary Yamamoto found at Theranos. It was not supposed to be, the variance was not supposed to be more than 15%. And here, look at under C. They found the variance to be 34 to 48%, way above the 15%. Then they found it to be 52 to 35% variance. Then they found 39 to 20% variance. They found 34 to 39% variance. You can read through this. And as high as 63.8% variance. And they were testing people's blood? Oh, I don't get it. I just don't get it. How do you operate a lab this way? How do you report patient results with these findings, these deficiencies? Is this really what happened? All reports were signed by the lab director on 9/19/2015. September 19, 2015, they were signed by the lab director. Except in March 2015, they were signed by the lab director on November 19, 2015. Why is that? Why did that happen? Then you can look at under D here, the July 2014 report indicated that a summary of the 2,179 controls on the Edison devices. However, the specific report on the Edison device only showed 1,600 controls were run on all tests. Why are they underreporting. What is going on here? In E, in July 2014, the data revealed the following test showed the percentage of QC samples with more than a 15% variation. Testosterone had 28% variation. T4 had a 21%, vitamin D 28. Overall, 16% of the QC samples on all tests, on all devices, had values greater than. So they did their own testing of all the tests, of all the devices. I think that's what that means that Theranos was using, and it was way above the 2%. The 2 standard deviations. In October 2014, you can look at this. They had a 33% result variance. They had a 19%, they had a 47%, they had a 28%, a 46% on vitamin B12 variance. Wow. It was truly a mess. I think Balwani in his text was correct. This was truly a mess. Allegedly, right? Allegedly. In February 2015, the data revealed the following tests showed, and you can go ahead and read through all this, even more variation in the results. And this is the last page. You can go ahead and read that. So what's your analysis? You know, we have Sarah Bennett, the regulator, the inspector that went on site to Theranos lab in Newark. She testified. She did an inspection. These are her findings. They had problems, many pages and pages of deficiency from quality control, from covariance, coefficient variance. Yet they were producing patient results. She also testified that she told Balwani every day of the deficiencies. So I don't know what the defense is going to do with that. You know, I'm sure there's more evidence to come. And again, they haven't put on their case yet. But this is pretty compelling. These pages and pages of deficiency. Did Sunny Balwani have knowledge? You tell me. What's your analysis? Leave a comment. You know, what's your analysis of all of this? So please do support my work by subscribing. Hit that like button. Hit the bell notification. And if you want to contribute, help me produce these videos. It's a lot of work. Please do contribute. Please do subscribe. I'll put a link to PayPal in the description box below the videos. So share these videos, subscribe, and thanks again for watching.